Good evening and welcome to another edition of awakentheworld.ca. My name is Garen, and this evening we're going to be talking about compassion. Now, the Dalai Lama says that compassion and love are both aspects of the same thing, and that of course would be love. Compassion, the desire to end one's suffering, and love, the desire to see one happy. That sounds like a fairly good definition. Although, there's a point here that most people will miss, and that is the suffering and happiness the Dalai Lama are speaking of are not first and foremost the physical manifestations we see in the world today. The physical manifestations we see today are a result of what the underlying problem is. The actual reason for all our suffering is our perceived false sense of self that we term ego. At a group level, at a family level, at a city level, a country level, a province level, a state level, every level imaginable, right to a species, the collective false sense of self, that ego, is the root cause of all perceived suffering. So, real compassion, true compassion, is designed around waking the person to their higher self, helping them transcend that false sense of self. This is what true compassion really is. Anytime, and this also ties into the statement by the Dalai Lama on love, that it is the desire for happiness for people. Happiness is not an external state of being. Whenever we go outside ourselves looking for happiness, we also invite its opposite, the suffering. And as a matter of fact, a lot of times, and I talk about this in my videos on desires and to have and to hold possessions. That brand new car that you received that you thought was going to bring so much happiness actually brings a lot of suffering in the long term when you look at it closely. This is the basis for the happiness and suffering that the Dalai Lama is speaking about. Now, we as a species always have an opportunity to do something to help another one of ourselves. And that's what usually gets lost. That's one of the misconceptions when we go out to display compassion to others, or we see something going on and we feel compassion rising within us. We have to be very careful that we don't fall prone to our ego selves and the misunderstanding that first and foremost, we are not truly helping another, we are helping ourselves. We are part of a collective whole, individuated parts of a whole, inseparable. At a physical level alone, the molecules and atoms of your body are being exchanged at a rate of roughly 15% per day with the environment around it, with other people. I mean, we literally are one. We must keep that in mind when we extend compassion to others, that we are indeed attempting to help ourselves wake up out of the dream. Now, this does not preclude caring for the physical. As a matter of fact, caring for the physical body is a byproduct of true compassion. All the Eastern philosophies out of antiquity, the Tao, the I Ching, and virtually all the Gnostic traditions since the dawn of a recorded time, all speak to the fact that a healthy body, a healthy temple, makes the best vessel for achieving our true reason for being here, and that is conscious reunification with the whole. being one, individuated, and the all in a simultaneous, and we that would be Christ, for example, or Buddha. And that is there for all of us. It is our birthright. It is where we are all going. As I said, real happiness cannot be found externally. Real happiness comes from within. And it comes from within when you realize your higher self, that you are a complete and whole and valuable, individuated, one of a kind, with a unique lens, a unique viewpoint, a unique gift. We as a species, if we were truly compassionate, would understand. I mean, come on. 40,000 children dying a day of starvation? We are not a compassionate species. We harm ourselves. We let ourselves be harmed. Another misconception we have to be careful of that occurs in the egoic states of attempting to extend what we would think is compassion is that they necessarily want the help in the way that we're choosing to give it. True compassion sees past the words and looks deeper into the being. You know, the guy standing on the street corner a block from the mission where there's full-time hot food and counseling and warm blankets and good people begging for money so that he can eat. Is it serving him to hand him money? Or is it serving him to make him feel instead that he is more than he thinks he is? That he is more valuable than he thinks he is? And to walk him down to that mission and get some food for him. You know, a lot of the things we do that we think we're doing out of compassion, we're actually doing out of an egoic need to not feel guilty, or an egoic need to dispel a fear we have that because of our faith or because we feel we're under scrutiny, that we must behave in a way that looks like it's compassionate. You know, I said to my wife once, you can watch two people interact with a homeless person and it can look exactly the same on the surface. But if you knew the point of view of both individuals, there's a profound difference in the energy exchange going on. The one is flipping the man on the street money out of his own sense of guilt and has a almost snarl on his face as he literally flips the money and lets it fall to the ground in front of him and says nothing as he walks by. Whereas the second person stops for a moment and smiles and places the same $10 or $20 down in front of him on the pavement. They can look very close on the surface, but there's a profound difference underneath. When we want to show compassion to others, we must first examine that our compassion does not arise from a sense of trying to make up for something that we think we failed to do for someone else in the past. It is then that our compassion tends to turn blind and oftentimes does more damage than not. A codependent mother can think she's quite showing a lot of compassion to her child by shopping and buying him all the junk food he desires because he's not a popular kid, he's got a lot of pimples, and he stays home and plays on the computer all the time. It may seem in some way that the mother is being compassionate of the child's needs, but those aren't the child's needs. Those are the outward expression of the mother's needs, her own egoic, false sense of self needs, false needs. So when we're talking about compassion, we must be careful that what we're actually feeling is compassion. Compassion is only about ending suffering. If we continue to only focus on the external symptoms we see, the homelessness, the abuse within families, the wars, the starvation, the deaths that are totally unnecessary due to things like malaria and I mean, the list just seems to go on and on and on. If we truly want to show compassion, we can't keep chasing the symptoms. We have to go for the throat. And of course, the throat is regaining control of our own ego and moving past the limiting idea that that false sense of self is really us. And I believe in my heart that the time has come for humanity to make a choice out of compassion for itself, out of a desire for true happiness and a future for humanity for itself, that we choose as a species to leap ahead consciously, to make conscious awakening the first and foremost task as one united people. This is Garen for awakentheworld.ca. I hope you've enjoyed this evening's discussion, and I hope we're going to have many more. Have a wonderful night.